Welcome to Tech Intersect. I'm your host, Tanya Evans, and my life and work exist at the heart of law, business, and technology. Yeah, I've earned a few fancy titles and degrees over the years, but the bottom line is I'm a writer, speaker, teacher, and lifelong learner, and I'm really excited that you've joined me on this journey. So what is Tech Intersect? Well, it's authentic, empowering conversations with really interesting guests who demystify complex topics to prepare you for the future, because your future is now. And it exists where law, business, and tech intersect. Get ready to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. In this episode of Tech Intersect, I welcome Melanie McClain to the show. Melanie is a dynamic and accomplished New York-based publishing A&R professional at Secretly Group, which includes big-time independent record labels as well as Secretly Distribution and Secretly Publishing. Prior to joining Secretly in 2019, Melanie was the hip-hop music content specialist at YouTube Music, where she created and optimized more than 100 playlists and assisted the service's artist relations team. In her 10 years in the music industry, she has also held amazing roles as staff writer at Solange's St. Heron, experiential music manager at Budweiser, and publicist for G-Eazy. Her past experiences have allowed her to help break international artists like Burna Boy, Megan Thee Stallion, Tory Lanez, and DaBaby, and more. And Melanie's mission is to uplift the vision of musicians who make boundary-pushing and left-of-center music. I invited her to come on the show to talk about how and why non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, are a viable option for artists not only to survive, but to thrive, especially independent artists, and about her work to educate and empower historically marginalized artists to explore and excel in monetizing their work in the new economy via NFT creation and sales. I really enjoyed this convo, and I know you will too. Now, before we hop into the ep, please take a moment to follow this podcast and then like, share, and comment so that others who would benefit from this content can find it. Okay, it's time to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. In this episode of Tech Intersect, I welcome Melanie McClain to the show. She is a tour de force in the Black creative community with a background in music moguldom. She will tell us about that in a second. She was also recently included in the Billboard Change Agents issue, also known as the Power List. She is a publishing A&R at Secretly Group, and she's making power moves in the NFT creative space as well, helping to educate and empower creatives to win in this new economy. We'll talk about all of that and more. But first, Melanie, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to speak with you. I've talked about this with you on the Twitters and also in our kind of pre-conversation, how much I love how you are moving in this space. There's a lot of synergy in what we do because you're so focused on the empowerment piece coupled with the education. And there's so many people talking about the potential and the power of Web3 technologies and blockchain, smart contracts, crypto assets. And obviously, I love that too. But without a solid foundation on the education piece to really help creatives move powerfully in the space, then it's going to be all for nothing. So I wanted to connect with you around those topics and chop it up a little bit to help anybody who's listening to be better than they found us today. I know that that is definitely going to happen with you. And I want, for those who don't know, your background and origin story on the creative side, and then, of course, your entree into the NFT space as well. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me here. So like by trade, my role is a publishing A&R at Secretly Group, as you said. And I've been in the music industry since about 2009. So a little over a decade, from running everything from PR to artist management to, in the last few years, doing everything from leading hip hop and African music playlist curation at YouTube Music to being the experiential music manager at Budweiser to being a music journalist for Solange at St. Heron. And I just really pride myself of really being really great at finding artists early and championing them early. So at YouTube, A lot of my role was working directly with artists like Lizzo and Burna Boy and Little Tekka, Megan Thee Stallion, things like that. Before often they even had the record deal supporting them. And I was doing that years before when I was an artist manager and a playlist curator. And then within the NFT space, it's been really exciting just because thankfully I was literally kind of on the earlier side of getting on crypto. I was buying crypto in 2017, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Litecoin, but I didn't really understand blockchains at the time. And then in 2020, around the summer of 2020, I got back into buying cryptocurrency. And then also through the leadership of people like Lady Fee and a lot of the early people in the Clubhouse community, as well as people doing live streams on platforms like YouTube, I learned more about social tokens, NFTs, different blockchains, whether it's Chainlink and Polygon, et cetera. And I really just kind of, beyond just, being a music executive, kind of helped myself become like a Web3 world builder. And really with the mission of like pushing culture left to center across the diaspora and on the continent, and tangential to being a full-time publishing A&R. I'm also the founder of the Blurred Lines community, which has that same mission of pushing culture left to center, which has been featured in that Billboard article you referred to, but also when I was featured in Nylon magazine in September 2021. So I'm just really trying to connect the same missions of amplifying Black voices, whether it's as a publishing A&R at a major indie company, as a community builder with Blurred Lines, and then also when it comes to consulting with brands and creatives directly to make moments in the blockchain and to do world building in the Web3 space.
That's really powerful and such a rich and diverse background that has led to what you're doing now. And I want to take a slight step backwards to make sure that people understand a day in the life of A&R. One, I'm pretty sure that most people don't even know what it really stands for, but it's a really important part of engaging artists, as you said, early to do certain things to prepare them for success for whatever the deal is. And so talk a bit about what the A&R life looks like.
Certainly. And as you said, A&R stands for artists and repertoire. So if you ever want to know, it's not artist relations, it's repertoire. I know people often get confused. And yeah, basically publishing A&R is different than A&R that you would do at a record label or distribution company or artist management. Publishing A&R, overall publishing is about for artists to collect their mechanical royalties and get their money, whether it's from playing on Sirius Radio to getting their music played in an episode of Insecure or a TV ad to make sure you're in Spotify streams and other DSPs, getting the money that you earn globally. That's like the first nuts and bolts. You might not interact with the A&R at all, but if you sign a publishing deal, that is their job to make sure you're properly collecting your money and getting paid at the right amount of time. As an A&R and publishing at Secretly Group, my mission really is about, at an indie label, really helping bring more diverse voices, not just racially, but also genre, and then also geographically. So I work with artists like Lady Donnelly, who's based in Nigeria. I work with Hawaii Mighty, who's based outside of Toronto and Brampton, Canada, as well as working with American artists like Namdi, who's based in Chicago, Mwami, who's based in Uganda, Kampala, Uganda, and other artists. And it's really about artists that will be at home at an indie spot that, might be kind of like the way that Tyler, the Creator, was on an indie label before he was on Columbia Records. Right. The fact that, I see artists like, FK Twigs is inspired a lot of people and she's on an indie label, and realizing historically that's a thing, as well as when it comes to independent artists, that my own musical journey of loving artists like Santa Gold and things like that, their big mainstream moments often was when they were synced in a commercial or in a TV show, and realizing that when it comes to Black creatives, no matter what genre they are, they can have an additional revenue stream from sync, as well as maybe have that breakout moment because they were used in a TV show or a film and it was Shazammed and things like that. So my day-to-day is basically working directly with these artists that I've signed this past year. I've signed, I believe, 11 artists since I've been here for a little over 2 years, and helping them, get things called briefs from music supervisors, write original compositions, as well as collaborate with other artists and bring their, their special sauce to help them make great songs. Because in other spaces, publishing deals are for writers or producers. I believe that, the next Grammy winning singer-songwriter is like, could be our favorite artist. A lot of my favorite Black artists, whether it's, Dev Hynes or others, they have a musical career, but their biggest wins happen working with someone like a Solange or Carly Rae Jepsen. And I want to help artists have those moments too. So that's kind of my day-to-day, as well as like my overall mission that I'm really grateful that I've been able to execute the last 2 years at Secretly Group.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
That's fantastic, because when I think about music copyright and the difference between just performing and songwriting and the longevity that you can have, a lot of times people don't even know your name, right? But you have such impact. Or it makes me think of the Dolly Partons in the world. It's like, yes, Whitney, may she rest in peace. Please keep singing this song, because the performance of it is one thing, but the gold is really on the pub side. And so it makes me think of the opportunities, certainly for mainstream artists, but also independent artists, in this new technology that allows people to leverage their intellectual property generally, but copyright specifically in this new medium. Talk to us about what intrigues you and excites you about the technology that can really empower artists to have a completely new revenue stream.
I think it's really great. I think a lot of the conversation in the music NFT world is based off of, selling albums and packaging them as NFTs, as well as what artists like Jock Green did by selling music and then giving away the publishing. But to answer your question about what excites me, it really excites me about working with artists who already have their own communities and selling NFTs as a way to like mint moments in the blockchain. Selling NFTs the way that, for example, when I saw Megan Thee Stallion's concert in 2018, this is way before she signed to 300. This is before labels were bringing her in, but I was a fan. And she played at a really small venue. And the idea that just like there's platforms like POAP, like if Megan made her own NFT and that gave me access to that concert, what would all the fans get if she intentionally did, airdrops? If she intentionally provided utility to that one NFT or airdrops in the 3 years since then? And that's what really excites me, is to work with artists that have already built their community, who've already kind of found their voice and really how to build out a world. And ultimately, my goal is to really create creator-focused Web3 economies, Web3 ecosystems, where by you having that NFT gives you access to all the amazing things they're doing, whether it's concerts, whether it's making merchandise, it was making their own clothing line, whether it is, if they're self-produced, learning how to produce just like them, if they know how to do album art, learn how to learn Canva better than I can, and do all to really do amazing world building that I think a lot of creatives are capable of, and extend it to the point that cash fiat is great, but at the same time, I believe that early adopter fans, tastemakers, there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of cultural value that right now, I don't think we're really amplifying that yet. And using NFTs and social tokens to give back to those early fans, in the same way that, like, if you became a Megan Thee Stallion fan in 2018, if you could have got 100 Megan coin, amazing things that you can do with that Megan coin that relates to all the great things she's done in her career, as well as, extending that out to the metaverse as someone who's at YouTube working, with, international musicians like Burna Boy, to now as a publishing A&R working with artists based in Nigeria and Uganda and Canada, like Lady Donnelly, Asupomo, Wami, and them. The idea that often, the person's biggest fan, they might never see them live, whether it is a person who's based in Kenya and their favorite artist is in Atlanta, or if someone's in Atlanta and their favorite artist is Kenya, you might never see them live. And I experienced that a lot growing up as a music fan, listening to a lot of music from the UK and West Africa and South Africa. And if we go to the metaverse and we create experiences there and we help people do world building there, our little avatars can all dance and party and hang out, just like we've been doing this past, year and a half on platforms like Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse, Airtime, things like that.
Do you think that the pandemic has accelerated the adoption, not just accelerated the adoption, but highlighted the uses that are no longer use cases? We were talking about use cases and potential for metaverses and all sorts of other ways to leverage the technology in the digital environment, generally in the blockchain environment specifically. But it seems like the pandemic has accelerated it. When I look at the numbers of NFT creation and the buying and the trading or flipping as well, this exponential increase like Q4 of 2020 and then now the beginning of 2021 and beyond. What are your thoughts on just the current state of the world and the impact of the pandemic on adoption?
Yeah, I think it's two things. A lot of people have been able to lean into this space just because, unfortunately, everyone was not able to maintain the employment they might have had in the top of 2020 or 2019. And because of just not having that same schedule, it allowed people to lean into this. And thankfully, some people, whether if you're a visual artist or a creative of some sort who sold NFTs, or if they're a collector who was really, discerning and bought a great piece and they sold it, a lot of people, maybe they did not return to the type of employment they did before because they were able to financially sustain themselves from that. And I think that if it was not for the pandemic, I don't think a lot of people would be able to dedicate the amount of time, whether it's, because they were working from home and they didn't have to worry about commuting, or the fact that instead of leaving the office for their lunch break, they hopped in on a Twitter space. I think that the amount of time people really accelerated this, as well as the idea that people kind of turn lemons into lemonade and, might not have had the type of employment, or especially for people in the music community, not being able to tour and looking for a sense of community they didn't have before. It really encouraged us to come together on different, community building platforms, as well as a lot of projects kind of gave us the community that we didn't have before. Like I'm an owner of a lot of blue chip projects like Bored Ape, Cool Cats, Subducts, and then I also have fractional ownerships of CryptoPunks thanks to the Party DAO. So just by being with those communities, it really helps me connect with a lot of like-minded that I might not have known ever before.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of Tech Intersect. Our conversation will continue in a moment, but first, a word on an exciting opportunity.
There's a more cost-effective and time-efficient way to reach your leading-edge learning and earning goals, to put you ahead of the stiff competition in this fast-paced, tech-driven economy. You need skills, credentials, and a fast track to a competitive advantage. You need it now more than ever, and I can help. The Advantage Evans method puts you ahead of the curve with condensed, comprehensive online courses, curated content to leverage your current skills and expertise, live coaching, networking opportunities, and more. Upcoming courses include From Cash to Crypto to help you buy your first Bitcoin, and there are 2 ways to get your advantage. Advantage Evans Encore gives you maximum experience for your total competitive advantage and access for 1 year. It includes a live welcome and modules on terminology, buying and selling, exchanges, mining, earning crypto, trading and investing, and also several of the legal issues you need to know in order to be safe and secure as you enter this space. That includes tax compliance, how to plan for a Bitcoin estate, and securities laws to make sure you avoid any legal unforced errors. Now, Advantage Core gives you the essentials. It's a short course to give you what you want and the support you need to buy your first crypto in as little as 3 weeks, with access to the information and replays for 3 months. And if you're not quite ready for your Advantage and want a sneak peek to try before you buy, then register for a free masterclass where I share my Crypto 101 success checklist and cover current hot topics in crypto. So there truly is something for everyone, including you, to get in on the fast track and learn and earn in the digital economy. Visit AdvantageEvans.com to get started. That's AdvantageEvans.com.
And now, back to the conversation.
Community is really important, and we see that just the richness of the community of the NFT space in general. When I think of creativity, collectibles, to a lesser extent gaming, but the gaming industry often is a front runner with all these new technologies, frankly, right? And in some sense, that is the case here. But we see collectibles and experience, which is something you continue to come back to. And so I want to talk about that as well, because experience continues to fuel, I should say, and nurture this idea of community. So talk about fan engagement and the benefits of using this technology, using NFTs, regardless of platform, right? We have all these new platforms. We started in the Ethereum realm, but we have Cardano, Solana, all these other platforms, how the community is connected to this entire idea.
Yeah, I think the idea is a lot of platforms like Discord, Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse, Airtime. A lot of these are places where people are coming together to discuss one common thing. And I think people come from different parts of the world, different types of backgrounds, different types of skill sets. But if they all buy Afrodroid or Bored Ape, they all have that in common. And I think it kind of makes me think about when you're a fan, right? You come from any area of life. I live in New York, so someone might have drove in from Connecticut because Rema had a concert and he's not going to have a show in Connecticut, but he's going to be in New York. And you're all in that room and you all feel connected. And that's another reason why I really connect with the space, because I know what it feels like that when you're in a room, especially as someone who's known for supporting and being a fan of early artists, when you show up to a venue and the room's 100, 200 capacity, you really feel in alignment with every single person in that room. Because you're not there because they had a billboard in Times Square. You're not there because 97 said there. You're not there because Drake gave them a cosign. You're there because you're a big fan and you want to support them. And that's why you're putting your physical existence, but also your money there. And I think there's a lot of similarities in the NFT space. And I think musicians, creatives of all backgrounds, and just thought leaders in general, I think this is a great opportunity to really corral the people who don't even already know you, but share a lot of the same values, or have goals of doing the same things as you, and using like the digital token, a digital item, that is how you all feel connected. The same with it, like, okay, we all have this ticket, we're all in the same space. But the good thing is you can show up at different times, different places. And if the community does things really well, like Bored Ape, like literally it's in the beginning of November, we're going to have a bunch of parties and a lot of things we're going to hang out on. And I bought my Bored Ape in May. So the idea that, literally 6 months later, a gut feeling that this was a great investment for myself, by far the biggest investment I've ever done besides like paying rent.
Right, that part.
And 6 months later, not only is it a blue chip project, but it's helped me learn a lot about entrepreneurship. It's helped me believe in really creating brands for myself in a way that I've never thought before. It's really, which you will love, it's really helped me believe in the possibilities of licensing. And for someone like me, my goal is not to sell my Bored Ape. My goal is to make more than the current amount that it will cost to sell it in licensing deals and partnership. And that's why I talk to record labels. That's why I talk to peers at like CPG brands, because that's my goal, to license it. And to the brand that I'm developing for my asset, my NFT, I want that to be worth more than the current NFT. And I think that's a lot of empowerment, that if you can build community and you also give them autonomy in themselves, you can really empower people as well as bring them together at the same time. And I've never experienced that before being an NFT fan. I love Beyonce, but at the same time, like, I don't know how to amplify that, you know what I mean? But I definitely know what I could do growing the assets of my NFTs.
That's really powerful, because it shows that not only is there extraordinary value, obviously as a matter of a bottom line, but just also culturally, the side of the shop that focuses on creativity, but in leveraging that creativity, because it's taxed as property, and you have the advantage of the upside of capital gains and obviously the losses. But it's, fiat is completely different. The currency that, because of inflation, you live in the same place every year, but the rent goes up. Same place, costs more, right? it costs you more. But on the other side of that, if you're creating NFTs and continuing to participate in downstream revenues, you get the upside if you never sell as well. I love how you're focusing on the sum of the parts as being greater than the whole.
Like a good example about the Bored Ape, once again, is, if they have 5 days of programming, one is to Bored Ape Yacht Club is literally a party on the boat they're doing. And imagine how much it would cost to buy a ticket to go on a boat. Imagine if it's an event that's open bar and there's food, as well as they're having a concert, type of party. If you added all those things together, now it's not worth more than the current price for a Bored Ape. But at the same time, if they continue to do this in the next 3 years, the next 10 years, that's going to be worth more than the price of the NFT right now, the floor price, the cheapest price as we call it. And I think that's what I hope all creators think of. Like, okay, let's create utility, let's create use cases for my community that the NFT, someone might be able to buy it on a platform called OpenSea or another one for, let's say, 100 USD. But you can create experiences that if you kind of all tally that up, it's worth way more than 100 USD. Not in like a, what did it personally impact you? Literally, if you bought that concert ticket, if you got into 5 concerts over the course of 2 years, those concert tickets are going to all add to be more than $100. And that's what I'm really excited about that, because the thing is, if you do that for the early supporters, like it's the Genesis project or the first of a series, okay, maybe that's only 10 people, 100 people that get $1,000 value for something that costs $100 to mint to first, initially buy. And everyone else has to, spend the actual normal amount of money. But okay, that's a good investment, because the same way that, when you go to Madison Square Garden, you still have someone's day one's fans there. And the idea is like the people who are really there for you is kind of having their back. And I've never really seen an ecosystem that could really facilitate that before, if that's a priority.
What are some of the pitfalls that artists should be aware of if they're moving into this space? See, some of the things that hit my inbox on a regular basis. Someone has misappropriated someone's art, either in music form, visual art, you name it. And I know that you've seen it too. And they create an NFT of it, and that becomes a whole situation. Let's start here. What are some of the pitfalls and cautionary tales that artists should be aware of? And then we'll talk about some solutions.
If you're an engineer or a scientist, you love Formula One, you love cycling, you love learning about how new technologies are changing the world around us, then I thought you may want to listen in to my new podcast, the Neil Ashton Podcast. We talk to leading engineers and scientists from around the world, hear about their life stories, hear about new technologies, and hopefully educate you and give you a better sense of how key things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, supercomputing are changing the world around us. If that sounds like it's something you might like, you should come and have a listen.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you said solutions, because I think it's both, right? I like thinking of minting an NFT is announcing your concert tickets are going on sale. And when you sell it, that's the sold out concert. Mm-hmm. So the idea is not that if your NFT doesn't sell for in the first hour or week, that you're a failure. Same way, if you have a 1,000, if you're playing Madison Square Garden, if you don't sell it out in the first 10 minutes, you're not a failure for not selling it out Madison Square Garden. I think it's the same way if you're doing the process of building a community. And I think the biggest pitfall, I think a lot of creators who are making their first NFTs or even several is thinking that the goal is to, hit the reserve price or to sell it. And if you did that, you check the box and you can move on and go on with your life because you've, got all these riches. I think even if you make that sell in 10 minutes, to me, having a mentality is still a pitfall that I feel like people should not only focus on. I think the goal is, okay, if whoever bought the NFT, is it a collector? Is it a fan? I think the solution would be to really connect with that person, support that person, look in their wallet. What else do they have? The same way every musician should know their target audience. They should know their fan base. If I listen to someone's music, I should say, okay, what playlist would you ideally be on? And don't say that's new music. Legit, sonically, which one is similar to it, in a realistic sense. And I think the same thing for any artist. if I said you're making an NFT, like, okay, in the entire community, who do you think will be like your ideal collector? Whose wallet would you love to have an NFT in one day? Don't say Gary Vee because he's phenomenal. Like, say a person that is really known for that. For me, it's going to be something that has to do with use cases. That's something that is going to maybe connect to the metaverse. It might be a composable because that's what's in my wallet right now, or it's going to be something that's going to have, a 3D avatar, or maybe a VR filter, or a vibrant community that is going to have longevity for way over 2 months. And I think a pitfall was, I think a lot of people they sell it and that's the win, when they really should have an ideal collector, not just a collector, not anyone who has ETH, not the biggest sale, but the idea that, like, okay, if you have a great collector who's amplifying you might sell that NFT for 0.1 ETH, but at the same time, if you continue to do other drops, or they can support you with licensing deals, right? They can, like my BA, you can sell it to them for 0.1 ETH, but at the same time, they can say, hey, I'm going to license this, and I want you to be part of like this deal, and that can be worth more than 10,000 USD, or the 10 ETH, which is like a big deal in the NFT community. Have something that's 10 ETH, like things like that, and really thinking outside of that construct of like just a sale. It's not just like about the ticket going on sale, the tickets going on sale, the first concert. It's about, okay, how do I sell out the venue? How do I really make it big? How do I make this the kickoff of me really being a world building creative?
I love how you reminded me of something that's really an important part of blockchain technology, at least for the chains that are pure in terms of being public and permissionless, right? They're public facing. You can actually click on the address or go to, if we're in the Ethereum environment, etherscan.io, you drop in the address and see what people are collecting, right? You click on the little tab, ERC 721, and you can actually see a list. That transparency is completely absent from the existing entertainment world. And so the transparency plus the access, obviously that has huge impact on the financial side and real impact, as you have just identified, on the creativity side. So thank you for that. And another point I want to amplify is identifying or distinguishing the collector from the investor. We have many people, a lot of whales really from the crypto side, coming in to just dabble, because what on earth are we going to do with all this crypto? I guess we'll buy things, right? But they're looking to flip, and that's fine. It's not a judgment, but it is an acknowledgement of something that happens in the existing art world as well. But more so, I feel, in this space, because of the easy access and the ability to buy something and quickly list it, the liquidity in the market, that you get to reach people you'd never get to reach before. So that can, I guess, be a cautionary tale, but also a note of empowerment as well. The opportunity to reach beyond, it's borderless, right? You can sell something in the States or Ghana, vice versa. And so those are really powerful things that I hope that artists are focused on, and collectors and investors too. Oh, so much good stuff.
Yeah, really quick. I mean, it has a lot of parallels with my, job as an A&R. Like, as I said previously, I was a playlist curator at a streaming service. And, before I had the job, I was making playlists. At the job, I made playlists. And now that I'm an A&R, no longer a playlist curator, I still make playlists for fun. And it's a really great reflection of my personal taste, as well as my community blur lines. Every single Friday, we curate a new Music Friday playlist. And every single Saturday, we curate a playlist of music new and old for members of the community coming together. And, the type of communities that I'm building, what does that center? Left of center Black music. And then also my personal playlist. If anyone, says, oh, I would love to, have Melanie be my A&R at Secretly Group and publishing, it's really, really out in the open when I'm into it. It's very, very, very apparent, like the Blur Lines Twitter account all day long. I'm amplifying artists that I love, like Pink Pantheress and Amaray and, Arlo Parks and Denzel Curry, right? It's very, very clear. And if you look at my playlist, if I have my Songs of Summer playlist, or, it's a new emerging trend that's, coming out of the UK Afro swing music, or whether UK, R&B infused with jazz, like it's really, really public facing, just like the Etherscan. Right. And yet every day I get emails, intros, and it's people who just do not align at all what I'm focusing on, right? It doesn't align with the music of my artists like Hawaii Mighty and Namdi and Asipomo and Lady Donley. The same way that if someone looks in my wallet, they can see I had, and like look at the ERC 721 on my Ether sand, you can see I had a BYOB. You can see I have a Bored Ape. You can see I have a Lost Boy. You can see I have an Afrojoy, on this line of blockchain. It's all very public. And I think we need to stop thinking about our own personal prerogatives and think about, fans, community, collectors, and what are they into, and kind of see their similarities. Is there a pattern? Is the fact that Melanie had FWB tokens in February? Let me look at this collector. How did she get FWB tokens in February? I know the project peaked in the fall. Like what? Oh, okay. So she's already in the music community. Oh, okay. So she's not, she docs herself. I know she lives in Brooklyn, but she does a lot of public facing, panels and speaking at conferences. So it makes sense that she'll be in a community that focuses on music people and a lot of people on the coast. All this all aligns. Therefore, maybe I won't be the best project, but I want to talk to her. So I'm going to, DM her and ask her about, Feltzine and say, hey, the Feltzine project's coming soon. And I'll say, oh my God, I love Feltzine. Dev and them are amazing. I can't wait to put upcoming NFT, and I'll be happy for that conversation. And I think a lot of times people just DM and say, I love your thoughts on my project, or chilling, or building something, and tell me what you think. While, yes, it takes a little bit of the time, but at the same time, as everything in life to do well, it takes a little bit of work.
Look, it's about DYOR. We talk about it on the financial side, and you want me to show up. If you want Melanie to show up and really engage, you have to do your own homework. I can't do my homework and yours. So there is a responsibility, right? There's more information available to us than at any other time in the history of humankind as we know it. Do the work. The rewards will be excellent, but help us help you, I think is tell people, speaking of which, I'm realizing that I've kept you over and I want to lovingly release you back to your very busy life. Any parting words that you want to share? And then definitely, and I will include it in the show notes as well, but ways that folks can engage with you and in your work.
Yes. I mean, the parting words I would say is, just when you are creating community, just make sure that, you're having diverse voices, not from the idea of checking a box, but realizing that if you're not having diversity, whether geographic, race, gender identity, sexuality, whatever it might be, you're not getting the best of everything. The same way that I might, I love Italian food, but if I only know Italian food, I would not know the beauties of Peruvian food and, the different things they use and things like that, or, the beauties of things like that. And, you honestly might not even what you might consider the best of, music NFTs, right? If you're not including people like, Latasha in there,
absolutely,
or other people, or if you're talking about photography, you're not talking about people like Raven, or if you're talking about, profile pictures and PFPs and collectibles, and you're not talking about long necky ladies and Afrojoids and Afro bubble, you're really not getting the full landscape, because there's a lot of great things by a lot of types of people, but it's a lot of great artwork that's being made and other types of collectibles and wearables and everything based by, women of color, people in the continent of Africa, people of queer identities, that often is not in the forefront, that I think is really, really important, that we have to be mindful of that, because they're doing some of the great things. There's a lot of great visionaries like Amir in this space. There's a lot of collectives. My first time in the metaverse was because of One Off. And if it was for them, it would have taken me a long time to get into crypto voxel. So that's my biggest parting words, just making sure that you are intentional about not just tweeting, do you know any women, or we need some Black voices, stepping up and, if you hear one name, go into their community. Spend a lot of time in the Black NFT art community. Spend a lot of time in the African NFT community groups. Spend a lot of times in, communities on different social media platforms that have nothing to do with NFTs at all or crypto at all. And they just center on, Afro pop music, or they just center around hip hop, and see what are their reference points in this space, and do that, because you're not getting the full scope. You're not knowing the best. You're not knowing the most innovative things until you take the time to do that.
That's beautiful. It's a great place to leave it. And definitely shout out to Latasha. This most recent drop was epic. So proud of her For sure. We're going to get her on Tech Intersect at a certain point. She needs to go sit down somewhere and take a well-needed break. But when she reemerges, I'm going to love to have her on the show.
And one thing I always mention just about the journey and why I say the moments in the blockchain thing is when I wrote for Saint Haran, I wrote about Latasha back in like 2014 or so. Mm-hmm. So I firsthand have seen her journey, seen her, as someone who lives in Brooklyn, seen her perform at venues at Brooklyn Museum for First Fridays and things like that. So like really, really realizing that a lot of the people who are doing well, it is not overnight.
That's right.
There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And now like they kind of found the right ecosystem for them to thrive. And that's the thing is like the same way that someone might not have known about, a very popular artist like Blau before this year, if they're not in the music space, this way that you might not have known about Latasha, but both artists or people who've been putting Blau and Latasha been putting the hard work a long time. And yes, maybe Latasha hasn't sold as many million as Blau, but at the same time, the way the community is shaped right now, we really need to amplify these diverse voices, especially when it comes to a lot of NFT projects that, might use offensive ways of using Black people or Asian people as not always reflective of our real identities, and realizing that, okay, if this is happening, that's indicative of like, these communities are not on these teams, they're not on these project teams, they're not in these DAOs. So let's make sure that we include more women's voices, more Asian voices, more Black voices, not for a diversity checkbox, but the idea that the traits of these NFTs are making it really apparent that these communities are not in these conversations, they're not getting amplified enough, and we're not talking about the great things they're doing every single day.
Well said. How can people engage with you and your work? Is it Twitter the best place? Where shall people find you?
I'm really active, on Twitter. My Twitter handle is MELKNEE. My name is Melanie. My handle is Mel-Nee, like your knee, body part. It's Melanie across platforms, every social media platform, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, Airtime, whatever it is, I use Twitter. I use Melanie all on those platforms. Also, if you want to send me a gift, if you want to send me some Ethereum for this great podcast, Melanie.e, that's the place to do that as well. And then also the community that I've built is called Blurred Lines, which centers left of center Black voices across the continent and then the diaspora. And if you want to send me music, you can email me at sendmelmusic@gmail.com. I'm always happy to receive music, especially if it aligns with my values, or to talk about, ways that we can do Web3 role building.
Excellent. Now, don't go sending her just any old thing. Will you please, DYOR, figure it out, her aesthetic, her focus, her point of view, and then you email her, and I think you'll get a better response. Other than that, we'll have to send you back. Melanie, it's a pleasure. I adore you, and I look forward to nation building with you as we continue to go forward. You know where I live in those Twitter streets, so please let's continue to dialogue. I definitely want to have you on in the future. If there's anything exciting that you want to share, consider this your home, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you. I just really appreciate that. A big part of my journey in the space this past year is not only listening to you provide advice, not only you doing webinars, off the Clubhouse streets, but also, you really documenting all these significant people, these significant moments, so we can look back now, literally been a year from now, as well as in the future. So I'm really, really grateful that you're documenting this point in history, because I love the conversations on social media platforms, but we need people like you to really, really kind of etch that moment in time. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for allowing me to be part of that.
Wow. Thank you, Melanie, for blessing the Tech Intersect family with this convo about your intriguing journey into and through the wild, wonderful world of music, and why now is the time for musical artists to follow the leaders in the NFT space like Trailblazer Latasha and commit to doing your research and taking ownership and control over your intellectual property in a way that centers historically marginalized artists in the power position of ownership in this new creative landscape, because the future of creativity is now. Okay, before we sign off, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this episode and this podcast with your networks. Follow me on social media and let me know what topics you'd like to hear more of and who you want to hear from. All right, that's all for this episode. Until next time, continue to shine.
Stay in touch with host Tanya Evans via your favorite social media. On Twitter at Tech Intersect and on Instagram via the handle Tech Intersect. This podcast has been produced by Stephanie Renee for Soul Sanctuary Incorporated.